Already had success betting round robins where I took a small amount and ran it up into tens of thousands and sometimes even higher. Soon I was running them up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. In one of my big round robin wagers in the 90s at the old Barbary Coast, the sportsbook operators were rocking and reeling as I was about to win on the remaining games of the ticket. I overheard the guys discussing amongst themselves that if this game comes through, we're ruined. And sure did, it came through. Moments later, when I would cash out my winning tickets, the Barbary Coast made sure that made very clear to me that I wasn't welcome to come back with my round robin plays again. What happened there was the system allowed $1,000 parlays on key games, but they weren't catching on the fact that I was betting round robins at the time. In baseball, I was betting 5-game round robins at $1,000 each with a couple of underdogs. So it wasn't just a $1,000 parlay. It was a $5,000 or $6,000 parlay that paid back $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a ticket. It freaked them out, as you can imagine. So it already beaten Bally's to the point where they didn't want any more of my action. I went to a little place called Little Caesars that was taking a lot of action, a private place, and they had enough of me. So the next thing I did is I tried my hands with the round robins at the famous Caesars Palace. I'd been there before and had won $30,000, $40,000 at a time, and they didn't seem to be too upset about it. I was playing some cards at the time too, so it was something that worked out to where there wasn't a problem. So I went in during this extremely hot run when I was in my early 20s. I went into Caesars and looked around. No supervisor was there. I was going to use my Barbary Coast trick and go bet around robin at whatever their parlay limits were, but I was going to take a 5s and a 6, a total of 6 teams. Well, as I started to make the bet, here comes the supervisors. They confronted me and told me that my maximum bet would be $100. I said, $100? This is Caesar's Palace. But they'd heard enough about me and my winning runs at that time. They didn't want anything to do with it. But I got lucky because right next to the Caesar's Palace was a new property called the Mirage at that time. And some people at Caesars told me that if I went over there to the Mirage, that they'd take the largest action, them and Binion's, but the Mirage was taking in more than Binion's at the time. So I said, okay. And I dashed over the Mirage like a hunter on a fresh scent. Arriving at the window of the Mirage Sportsbook, I asked them what their betting limits were, and I think they responded like $5 or $10 or something like that. I said, no. I said, what are your upper limits? The response that I received back was, I've never seen us refuse a bet. Wow. I stood there staring at the sportsbook like Copernicus finally discovering the true place of the earth and the cosmos. In one swift moment, my mind lit up like a pinball machine, and my face suddenly took on the expression of a teenage boy handing the keys to a brand new Mercedes on his 16th birthday. I instantly realized that this was my chance. This was my opening. Like a quarterback seeing the whole of an opponent's defense, my blood was so thrilled with hope and possibility that I couldn't even hold back a grin. After placing my first round robin bet at the Mirage, I smiled like a vulture with the first option to a kill. Hours later, I had turned a relatively small amount of cash into over $90,000. And I went up to cash the ticket, thinking that sirens were going to go off and supervisors were going to come to approve everything. And a little old lady said to me, do you want chips or cash? I said, are you kidding me? You don't need approval on to pay out this ticket, and you've got the availability to pay me in cash. And she says, chips or cash, sir? I said, okay, cash. And boom, she paid me. And I remember telling my brother at that point, even though this was a quite homely older lady, I said, that's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. So I was able to turn a small amount of money into $90-something thousand on my first foray at the Mirage. Then I got to know the assistant sports director and the sports director and asked them, I said, would you allow me to continue at higher and higher rates on these round robins? And their response was, sure. We take more action here than anybody, and Steve Wynn's not afraid of the action, so go for it. So I said, okay, are you sure? And they said, yeah. Well, that turned into a multi-million-dollar run very, very quickly. The rest was history. In the following years, the Mirage, I was known to bet millions of dollars a week, sometimes in a day. In 1995, the sportsbook The Mirage was by far the largest sportsbook in Nevada. In that year alone, the Mirage took over $100 million in sports betting action. Out of that $150 million approximately, I believe I was around $70 million of it was just me alone. My wagers accounted for almost half the sports betting action of the largest sportsbook in 1995, and probably around a third of the combined action in all of the Las Vegas sportsbooks. That being said, I'm sure I was the largest sports bettor in the state of Nevada. I'd go on to drain the Mirage Sportsbook out of tens of millions of dollars for my sports wagers before they finally cut their losses and shut me down. The difference between me and other high rollers is that while others usually gamble for the entertainment, I do it for the profits. It's a business to me. When I was allowed to accelerate to maximum limits when betting on sports in the 1990s, I had so much winnings on my hands, it was tough to know where to put it. Closets in my home were routinely stored with $100,000 casino chips. My jean pockets were known to carry around over $1 million in chips and whatever cash I could carry. Oftentimes, I didn't even know what to do with all my winnings. I ended up giving millions away to friends, family, and others in my circle. Now that I can't accelerate to max limits the way I used to when I was given almost free reign at the Mirage Sportsbook, I've decided that it's time to help others like you share in my success.